They say some buildings remember. Not the walls. Not the bricks. But something deeper. Something beneath the floorboards. Something that watches. 6 years ago, Daniel Morey walked into the Halloway House. He never came out. But the house didn't forget him. And it didn't stop calling. Now, someone else has heard the whispers. And the house is ready to open its doors again. Everyone in the town of Elmridge knew the Halloway House. It had been empty for over 40 years. No one mowed the lawn. No one touched the curtains that hung like skin in the windows. And no one, absolutely no one, ever went inside after dark. Except for Daniel. Daniel Morey was 27, a filmmaker chasing urban legends. His channel barely had 2,000 subscribers, but he dreamed of going viral. Real places, real scares, no gimmicks. So when he heard about the Halloway House, he packed his camera, flashlight, and recorder, and snuck in through a side door, just as the sun dipped below the trees. But Daniel wasn't just chasing stories. As a child, he'd had dreams, recurring nightmares of a room with torn wallpaper and a mirror that didn't reflect him, but something darker. His parents had brushed it off. But he always felt a pull toward abandoned places. Especially this house. The Halloway House had a reputation. Built in 1922, it was originally meant to be a children's home, until a fire killed 6 orphans and the headmistress. The city rebuilt it into apartments. But disappearances began. Tenants reported sleep paralysis, strange dreams, and shadows moving against the grain of reality. In the 1960s, 3 families moved in, none stayed longer than a week. In the 70s, a group of spiritualists claimed to feel the presence of a fractured soul. 2 of them went missing. Their blood was found, but not their bodies. Newspapers stopped reporting on it in 1981. Some say the paper was paid to ignore it. Others say the editor went mad. Daniel's grandfather had been a police officer back then. He used to mention the house that eats people. But he always said it as a joke, with a nervous laugh. The night Daniel entered, the house groaned like it hated being disturbed. Dust choked the air. The wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. Every step Daniel took felt too loud. He filmed everything, whispering into the camera like a ghost hunter, "No one's been in here for decades, or at least, no one's come back." Then he heard it. A whisper. Faint. Not behind him, but inside the wall. He froze. Pressed his ear to the drywall. It whispered again. "Daniel." He stumbled back. Swore it was the wind. Laughed nervously. But the whispers came again. Louder. From different walls. Sometimes angry. Sometimes pleading. All saying the same thing. "Don't leave us here." His flashlight flickered. The camera shut off. In the blackness, he heard scratching. Something was trying to get out of the walls. He ran upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and sat with his back against it. Then, the door handle began to turn. Slowly. Rhythmically. Like someone was trying to mimic a person. He held his breath. The handle stopped. Then a knock. 1, 2, 3. Followed by a voice, "Let me in, Daniel. Please. You already did this before." His blood ran cold. That wasn't possible. The door creaked open on its own. The room was empty. He grabbed his camera and ran, but the halls had changed. Longer. Crooked. The windows showed nothing but black, as if the world outside had disappeared. The house was no longer abandoned. It was awake. And it remembered him. Photos on the wall were no longer dusty portraits, but images of Daniel. For moments in his life he never remembered being photographed. His school years. His room. Him sleeping. Then he found the nursery. A crib. A mobile spinning slowly. A closet half open. He felt drawn to it. As he approached, the whispers returned. Not in the walls, but in his head. You left us here. You forgot. Now you remember. Now you stay. He tried to leave. But every door led back to the same room. Again and again. The nursery. The closet. The crib. Then he heard crying. A baby? A woman? He opened the closet. Inside was a mirror. In it, he saw not himself, but a younger version. 12 years old. Crying. And standing behind the boy, a woman in black. Her face, wrong. Lips sewn shut. Eyes bleeding. Her hand on the boy's shoulder. The boy whispered, "You said you'd be back." Daniel screamed. Through the mirror. But behind it was nothing. Just wood. Then the whole house screamed back. A chorus of voices, thousands, flooding from the vents, the floorboards, the ceiling. "Stay with us." He ran. Blindly. Crashed through a door and fell out into daylight. He looked back. The house stood still. Silent. Watching. His camera still recorded. He reviewed the footage weeks later. But in the video, he never appeared. The house was empty. Silent. Except for one frame. A mirror. And in it, Daniel. Still inside. Smiling. Then, the smile widened. Unnaturally. Inhumanly. His eyes rolled back, turning a milky white. The image distorted, static flickering over the screen. A loud ringing filled the speakers, like nails dragging across glass. The video cut out. That night, a neighbor walking past the Halloway house claimed to see a figure standing at the upstairs window, grinning. 2 weeks later, Daniel's YouTube channel uploaded a video. It was titled "I'm Still Here." No one claimed to upload it. But it autoplayed for thousands. Those who watched reported the same thing. At the end of the video, their screen reflected a version of themselves, older, twisted, with blackened eyes, just for a moment. A moment that couldn't be explained. After that, strange things began to happen. Phones ringing at 3:13 a.m. Whispering in the vents. The words, "You already did this before," written on bathroom mirrors. Urban explorers who entered the house began disappearing. Only their cameras returned. Still recording. Always recording. Some say the house itself is hungry, that it collects people who are curious. That each visitor feeds its memory. And every room is just another trap, designed to reflect their own fears. The nursery, the hallway, the photographs, they change for everyone. For Daniel, it was forgotten promises. For others, it's something worse. A former priest who entered the house was later found wandering the woods, repeating scripture backward. A team of ghost hunters sent a live stream, but the footage was corrupted, filled with low whispers and a voice repeating, "You're next." Local children dare each other to knock on the door. Some swear they hear knocking back, from the inside. Some see lights flicker on in the attic. And sometimes, on cold nights, the fog around the house breathes. Authorities refuse to step foot inside. One officer did. Just once. He came out 5 minutes later, silent, pale, retired the next day. He never spoke again. But Daniel's story didn't end there. Last year, a college student wrote a thesis about cursed architecture. His research led him to Halloway House. He never returned. But one of his professors received an unmarked envelope weeks later, with a single photograph inside. A blurry image of a nursery. In the mirror, the student. Behind him, Daniel. And behind them both, something much taller. The image was analyzed. It contained anomalies. Layers that shouldn't be possible on a single film photograph. Experts said the photo couldn't exist. But it does. It hangs on a bulletin board in a back hallway at the university. No one remembers who pinned it there. Sometimes it moves. And if you stand too long staring at it, you might hear something. very faint. A whisper. Calling your name. It's been 6 years since Daniel Morey disappeared. The Halloway House was officially condemned after a second wave of disappearances, but unofficially, it remained a subject of obsession for a certain group of people. People who had lost someone. People who had seen too much. And people who had heard the whispers. One of those people was Iris Caldwell. Iris wasn't a ghost hunter. She was an archivist. Quiet, precise, patient. Her job was to document lost architecture, hidden histories, and unspoken tragedies. She had always been drawn to stories that didn't want to be told. And she had come across the Halloway House by accident, while scanning through old floor plans of Elmridge's forgotten buildings. There, buried in a folder mislabeled municipal storage, she found a blueprint that chilled her. It showed an entire sublevel beneath the house. A labyrinth of rooms. None of them had doors. None of them were in the city's official records. Her curiosity became a fixation. She read everything. The burned newspaper articles. The redacted police reports. The missing persons lists that didn't match census records. Testimonies from relatives of those who disappeared. A journal fragment allegedly from Daniel himself, mailed anonymously to a local library, written in handwriting that didn't quite match his own. She made a wall of evidence. Strings, pins, copies of handwritten notes. Pages from a 1952 book called Structural Memory in Haunted Spaces that described buildings as living things. In the Halloway House, fit every description. And most disturbing of all, the preserved footage from Daniel's final visit. She watched the full file. But something was wrong. There were jump cuts, not digital, but physical. Like pieces of time had been sliced out. She played it frame by frame. One frame showed something behind Daniel. Not a figure. A shape, almost architectural. Like a room that wasn't there before. And in one reflection, not Daniel. Not the cameraman. But someone older. Wearing black. Staring at the lens. Iris began to have dreams. She stood in long hallways that turned in impossible angles. Doors opened into identical rooms. Her reflection wouldn't follow her movements. The whispers, they called her name. Over and over. She started losing time. Hours missing. Lights turning on by themselves. Her voice on voicemails she didn't leave. In one, she said clearly, "I'm ready to remember." She decided to visit the house. Not enter it, just observe. But the house noticed her. Her first visit, she stood at the edge of the fence for 10 minutes. She felt watched. Not from the windows, but from the cracks in the foundation. The next day, the blueprints on her desk had changed. Extra rooms. Handwritten notes in her own handwriting, but she hadn't written them. You were invited. 3 nights later, her mirror fogged up. In the center, a symbol. A circle within a square. She scraped it away. But it returned the next day. Burned into the glass. Books in her apartment began moving. Stacking themselves. One night, her bookshelf collapsed, but instead of dust, the pages scattered were filled with names. Names from the missing persons list. By the end of the week, she wasn't sleeping. Not out of fear, but anticipation. She went back. Not during the day. But at 3:13 a.m. The door opened on its own. She stepped inside. The house had changed again. Now, the air was warm. Too warm. Breathing. The inside wasn't just rooms anymore. It was memory. Personal. She passed scenes from her childhood, a hallway from her grandmother's house, a classroom she hadn't seen in 20 years. Each room more invasive than the last. She wandered for hours. Or minutes. Time was broken here. She heard voices, some begging, some laughing, some echoing with familiarity. At one point, she passed a wall covered in names. Some scratched out. One, clear, Iris. She found a stairwell leading down. It wasn't on any blueprint. The sublevel was real. Endless corridors. Rooms with no doors. Windows that looked into nothing. And whispers, so many whispers. You're not lost. You're chosen. She began to see them, the residents. Faces in the shadows. Eyes in the walls. Children with hollow expressions. A woman in black. Daniel, standing still, smiling, but never blinking. One room showed her future. Her own death. A mirror where she watched herself age, decay, and dissolve, while still smiling. Another showed her childhood home. Except the walls were wrong. Bleeding. Breathing. She reached for a light switch and felt teeth. She walked into a library. Shelves filled with books that bore no titles, just names. She opened one. It was her life story, written in real time. The last sentence hadn't been finished. She watched it write itself, and then she turned. She reached a final chamber. At its center, a massive mirror, cracked in 6 places. Surrounding it, personal items. Cameras. Phones. Journals. All labeled with names. One of them was hers. She looked into the mirror. And it spoke. Not aloud. Not in sound. But directly into her mind. This place isn't haunted. It's remembered. It's memory itself. We are what is left behind. And you, Iris, you are the next archivist. The mirror shimmered. The cracks vanished. And her reflection smiled. Behind her, thousands of others. All watching. Waiting. She tried to run. But her body stayed still. Only her reflection moved. And walked away. Now, Iris sits inside the Halloway House. Still. Silent. Some say she was never real. Others claim to have seen her walking through archives, reading old books, always in black. A librarian in another town received a donation box. No return address. Inside, journals with Iris's name. Sketches of hallways that led to nowhere. One tape recorder, playing whispers. At the end of the tape, a voice. Iris's voice. Memory is a room. But you don't choose which door you enter. Only which one you pretend leads out. If you go to the sublevel now, if you find that mirror, you'll see her. Smiling. And she'll be standing behind your reflection. Ready to invite you in.